What's up, everybody? Welcome back to today's special The Canada Mentor live stream where we talk about poutine and moose and geese, Canadian geese, beavers, swans.
Sure.
Wait, no, the geese and swans are different things. I can't remember. What's
Yes.
up, everybody? I've got Andrew here with me, and we're going to talk about the moose today. So, how are you all doing? How you doing, Andrew?
I am doing great. Glad to be here.
So hold on, I have to turn you up because I turned it down because the intro music was so loud. Now
Yeah.
I have to turn you up. So
I was like headbanging a little bit to it, and then I was like, "Oh wait, it's gonna end, and I'm just gonna be here." Could just cut to me jamming out to it.
That'd be good. All right. So today we have a nice announcement. Obviously, everybody knows who Andrew is by now. Digital Andrew. I mean, you've seen all of our live streams. We've got a new course coming, Practical Security Fundamentals, and the icon for it is a moose. So that's the moose is on the loose title. And we're going to talk about that today. We're going to go through who it's for, what's happening, how it's being released, where you can get at it, how technical it is, what topics are covered. And then we'll also talk about the whole CVE drama and stuff as well, and just give like what we think's happening, and some interesting, hopefully interesting insights and predictions on this drama that's happening. That's kind of shows how, I don't know, futile our efforts are as cybersecurity professionals to make anything that's meaningful and not really hollow, that could just break like an egg. So why don't we start off? So Andrew, do you want to give us a rundown of Practical Security Fundamentals, a new course that's should be on the Academy now as of 30 minutes ago?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, it's live now. The first 4 modules of it are live now. So this is eventually going to be a free tier course. So just like the other 4 that are on there right now, once it's completely done, it will be 100% free. So this is a foundational level course, an intro course to build on those core pillars that we talk about. If you want to get into like SOC, pen testing, for us first, it was pen testing. And when people came into that new, fresh, without background tech experience, we would always say you need like those fundamental 3 core pillars of like understanding how a computer works, which is covered in the help desk course. You need to know networking, which is a bit covered in the help desk course. And then we're going to also have a free tier networking course. And then you need to know like those core security fundamentals. There's a lot of just terminology and important things. You need to know how to talk about them and what those words are. So this course is planning to address that pillar in our ecosystem of courses, because previously we would send people away to, look at different resources. Yeah. And, there are some good resources for this out there, but not as many in the TCM style where they are adding some practicality and hands-on to it, which we're trying to do for this course.
Yeah. I think for me, so I've been through the first few modules already, and to be honest, I think it's great for somebody who, like you say, needs to know the terminology and the different things in security, but also adding a bit of hands-on experience to really kind of like reinforce stuff. There's a cool like web hacking challenge in the red team section, which actually took me a little bit longer than it should have done. I was going for SQLi for so long, and I was like, no, it can't be this complicated, and then eventually solved it.
It doesn't even have a database.
That's the worst thing.
There's no doubt. I was vibe coding, man. Vibe coding gone wrong. It was so funny. I was like, yeah, can you? I kind of just wanted to play around with vibe coding too, because I had an idea of how like I was going to build this app out, and I was like, I've been meaning to play around with vibe coding, and I was like, can you make me like a demonstration of a secure login portal? And it's like, sure. So it writes this whole Flask app and like all this, and I kind of thought I was going to do a database or something, but no, it just hard coded the password into the Flask app.
But that's perfect security. You can't hack a database if there is no database.
Exactly. I mean, yeah, we wasted an hour of your time.
GPT wins. Yeah.
Yeah,
GPT wins.
exactly.
Um,
Look at the source code.
Awesome. So the modules out so far. Do you want to list them off, or the in terms of the release schedule? So we've
Yeah,
got a red team and a blue team module already. But what is the rest of the course going to look like as well?
sure. Yeah. So the first 4 dropped today. The first one is like your standard course intro. So for people that know me, I introduce myself, talk about what's going on in the course, go over the entire curriculum. So if you do want to check out, what's coming, I show the whole curriculum in that.
Yep.
And then we also set up the virtual machine that we're going to use throughout the course. So there's going to be hands-on labs in pretty much every section of the course, at least one, and we'll use that virtual machine throughout. So we set that up. Then we have a section on like the basics of security. And the point of that section is kind of just to motivate you for why security matters. So we talk about some of the big reasons about why we need security for society to function. Even things that, kind of just take for granted working all rely on security. We talk about the business of cybercrime, which I think is really important to talk about because really that's what's driving like a lot of our jobs in the cybersecurity industry as a whole. Like there was so much growth when ransomware kicked off as like a thing.
Yeah.
That was kind of like created explosion in the cybersecurity
Yeah.
industry.
And phishing CEOs, I think, also increased budgets on
Yeah,
everything.
100%.
Whaling. That's when whaling or like
Whaling combined with spear phishing
or whatever people
Yeah.
call it.
Yeah. What else we talk? We talk about the CIA triad and some just other like really fundamental terms. And then the way that I structured it is actually wanted to talk then about all of the different roles that you could either work towards or that just make up cybersecurity teams. And I split that into the blue teams. We talk about what a SOC is, SOC analysts, the other core roles, threat hunting, GRC, vulnerability management, all that stuff. And then we get into the red team where we talk about, why do we do penetration testing? Like, what is the point of hacking something? Answering that question of like, aren't you just like showing hackers how to do this and all those common questions? I talk about the difference between pen testing and red teaming because I always see people get tripped up on that one when they're learning about it because it's just kind of confusing. You're like, yeah, it's the red team. And then you're like pen tester, and then like a red teamer is something different. And then we have that fun lab that we were just talking about where take a look at brute forcing a web app and how to do that, and also how to set up Docker and run Docker containers as well.
Yeah, nice. I think sprinkling in some like technical stuff on top of like theory is honestly so useful because it makes everything real and makes people realize like, the reality of what we do. And one that it's a lot of the time not that complicated. And usually it's just, depending on the technology stack, that's kind of what makes things complicated. But attacks themselves, a lot of vulnerabilities are fairly straightforward. So
yes.
So yeah, it's really nice if you have to work with, especially if you work cross domain. I think because I sat and watched all of the videos. It's really kind of clear especially even like the theory sections. They've got like lots of clear bullet points, and really in your mind you can get a clear image of okay, this is how cybersecurity works. And having just like a knowledge in different domains is going to really help you, regardless of what role you're working in, because even if you're super technical, like if you don't know what like the GRC team are doing with PCI DSS or PSD2, you're going to have a bad time.
Yep.
Like, technical people are kind of like the worst people for thinking they know everything, but actually they only know this very little thing in a huge industry. So yeah, all good. All right, first up. Arubia says Alex is growing his summer hair. Yeah, I'm getting my haircut tomorrow, so expect some radical changes. My usual 3-month haircut, which it is getting a bit long. Like I had this in my meeting on Monday. It's I don't know. It's also receding a bit. I was talking about this, once you get into your 30s, your hair starts to recede. You just got to live with it. So we've got a question from Mohammed. How do we see the future of Android security? So I have a prediction that, so in my opinion, like mobile security is much more mature than network security for organizations or general desktop operating systems, for example, just because the life cycle of mobile devices is so much
Mhm.
shorter. And generally, the architecture around a mobile device is built with more security in mind. So I think the future of like mobile application security is going to be better than other areas. But I also think that since web apps are just becoming the defaults, we're going to see more and more mobile applications that are basically web apps, and they're probably going to make mistakes like storing things locally and securely and not using like the secure storage on the device and other things. So this is kind of my prediction, but I'm not a mobile specialist. So, maybe ask like Live Overflow. He knows what he's talking about when it comes to mobile pen testing. If you have any thoughts, Andrew, on the future of Android security.
Yeah, I know that Google is trying to improve it because there are not enough people working on their bug bounty. So you mentioned
Mm,
Live Overflow, like they sponsored him to do a whole course, which is free, about Android bug bounty,
yeah,
probably because even though it's more secure, like the vulnerabilities in the Android ecosystem itself and its apps are so damaging. And these are the ones that are worth like
yeah,
millions of dollars and going out to the black market and gray market, because this is what allows like Pegasus or those other nasty
yeah,
spywares to be installed, which like governments and bad threat actors will pay a lot of money for those to spy on things like journalists or stuff like that, unfortunately. And yeah, so I think like my personal opinion on is I think Google's gotten like kind of tired of that being the case and those being
yeah,
released that way. So they want more people to take it seriously. So in some essence, it might also be security, not by obscurity, but just that like not enough people are doing it and
yeah.
looking at
It's a
it.
bit like the IoT field where there's not enough people doing IoT security. And so a lot of people who are releasing insecure IoT devices are getting away with it, so to
Yeah,
speak.
just no one finds it, or like for the average person, the impact, it doesn't matter as much per se, right? Like depending
Yeah.
on what the malware is doing, but with IoT devices, that's a big thing. Like as an individual, like your device is probably going to become part of a botnet, but like, will you
Yeah.
ever really like, there's millions of people that have their devices as part of botnets, IoT
That's the
devices
thing.
or
It's like,
routers. They don't know. They never
do
notice.
I care if my IP camera is part of a botnet? Like, if it's
Yeah.
being used to denial of service, other stuff, I don't really care. But
Yeah.
if somebody's using like malware on my phone to then steal my bank
Yeah.
details or like use my banking app, then of course I do care. So it's
Yep.
like, yeah,
Exactly.
malware in the I think malware in the App Store and the Google Play Store is underplayed. I think actually there's a lot more malware than people realize, or than whatever the vendors are letting on. So this is my
Yeah.
prediction as well.
Especially
The checks
Android.
are not that stringent, and there's a lot of people who put like kind of like fake malware and then publish it to the Play Store to be like, well, this was easy, nobody caught me, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's tricky. It is tricky, especially when you run an ecosystem like that where you're relying on people, like untrusted parties to publish their apps and things like that. How do you make every single app secure? And the same problem with NPM. There's so much malware on NPM. I can't remember who it was recently. Aikido Security. They did a blog post. They were watching live as Lazarus Group were uploading an NPM module and then testing it and then uploading like new versions, and all they were doing to obfuscate it was add like white space so that you the code was like to the right hand side so that you couldn't see it in your browser as you were looking at the source code.
You're like,
Ridiculous.
oh yeah, this looks fun.
like yeah, and it's the same thing with I think with the App Store and the Play Store. It's just there's too many apps and not enough checks, unfortunately. But I still think that mobile devices are more secure than desktop. I could be misinformed, but I think that they're more secure. Like I only do banking on my phone. I don't ever do banking on my PC. And if you have kids and you let kids use your PC, don't ever do online banking on that same PC. You definitely have malware on your PC if you have kids and you let them use it. So that's a thing for sure. All right, let me pull up a few more questions. Britt says, did you know Alex is actually a cat? This is probably true. I do sleep 18 hours a day. So let me keep scrolling down. Oh, do you have any thoughts about baseband hacking? What is baseband? I'm not familiar with this.
I'm
Do you
assuming
know
they're
what this
talking
is?
about like RF hacking, like radio frequency, sniffing out RF, and trying to crack encryption on that. Interesting.
Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an interesting topic, and that's another one of those ones where people are just not looking at it that much. And there's going to be a lot of research needed for that and security testing, especially with 5G and like as so many things are moving to like mesh networks and more wireless stuff and different wireless communication protocols for like low range or LoRa and all those. Yeah, and not a lot of people are doing that. It does have some barriers to entry because you do need to get some gear and learn how to set that up, and it's a little bit more complex, but I don't know. It's something that I find very interesting. The one thing I will say is that if you're going to be broadcasting anything, you got to be careful about not breaking the FCC laws because they will not care and they will find you. They will fine you.
I feel like if anybody who watched the F1 Bahrain Grand Prix last weekend, there were so many random technical issues between different teams. I reckon there must have been like somebody in the crowd with a jammer or something, like interfering with some stuff because one of the some of the transponders were down, some of the release lights were not working. There was like so many like disconnected things across different teams not working. I don't know.
Yeah,
it wouldn't surprise me if it came out that somebody had been messing around.
This was a while back, but do you remember when the F1 teams had figured out some of them that like the signal, I think, was wireless that went to the lights? So there was a slight lag in like the transmission of that to when the light would go. And they had wired that and figured that out into like their drivers' cams. So they were all getting, it was like milliseconds, but like in F1, that was still enough. Do you remember that? And then they figured it out. They didn't tell anyone. And then they like encrypted the signal or changed it or something. Or they added a delay. That's what it is. And then like half the cars started and the lights hadn't changed. And they're like, oh,
it's amazing. Yeah. And then like everybody's like kind of low key cheating because they
just got all busted because they all started and like 10 cars are just sitting there waiting for the light and the other 10 are just like
so they do that on when they do the sprint races with like Usain Bolt. If they react faster than a certain time that's like humanly impossible, they you get DQ'd. So even if you go on the gun, like to the millisecond, you still get disqualified because you're not physically able to react fast enough.
Interesting.
To that, which is kind of interesting. Not to do with cybersecurity, but kind of interesting anyway. Here's another good question. Okay, so I'm standing the choice between the sysadmin and web app pentest, and if you join the live stream, you know what I'm gonna say. What do we think will have the most opportunities in future? And this is a discussion that me and Andrew had a couple of times recently, and I think we're kind of in the same boat in that AppSec is going to continue to grow.
Yes.
And I think that network pen testing, I don't think it's going to disappear or shrink, but I think it will plateau. And I think that as more things become web applications, of course, there's going to be a need for AppSec. Now that vibe coding is a thing, AppSec is definitely going to be needed. I can't remember which CEO it was. Even if I remember, I probably shouldn't say because I don't want to get sued. But one of them was basically they sent around an email to all of their employees saying, "Oh, if you're not using AI to code, then pack up and leave or whatever." And then Shopify, yeah, it was on fire.
I knew it. I was like, should I say it or keep my mouth shut?
And so now everybody who's a bug bounty hunter or any kind of hacker, now you have a very clear target of whose code is going to be terrible. It's going to be that web app. That honestly, over the next 6 months, the application is just going to go to garbage if all they're doing is producing AI code, and if their senior engineers are not using AI code. So that's the vibe I got from it. Obviously, if you're using it responsibly, using it to kind of like, if you're an experienced developer and you're using AI to generate code, and then you're reviewing that code and implementing it properly and making good decisions, then yeah, I definitely think that AI is an amazing tool, and you'd be stupid not to use it. But from the screenshots and emails that I saw from him, it just seems like he's just replacing people with ChatGPT or Claude or whatever model he chooses. And GG. That's I think Fireship said Slopify is now the new brand logo. So you can't sue me because Fireship said it.
I saw.
So I'm quoting Fireship.
I saw someone made a website and a service, and I don't actually even know if it was real or a joke, but it was called Slop to Prod.
Yeah.
So like their business angle, and they actually like bought the domain and stuff. Is like, you create like your vibe code, and then like I'll fix it all for you for a price, and then it'll go to prod. So it's called like slop to prod. So anyway, but so many people have been asking me, like, is AI going to take this job or replace this job? Sysadmin, web pen test, whatever. And like my answer, at least my opinion, in the foreseeable future is no, it's not. But someone using AI or who understands how to use it to its fullest potential, they may take your job, or they may beat you out for jobs, because it's really like a force multiplier. Like when I use AI, I can work like twice as fast, maybe, or, I'm just throwing out a number. Maybe it's not quite that, but like saves a lot of time, because there's still like a lot of like, just little things that I don't even really think about them, but I just have to do them. And AI can.
I think that's true. And I think the big thing for if anybody's in leadership or management position, over reliance is a huge risk for you. So use it, like as Andrew says, as a force multiplier. And a lot of the tech leads that I've spoken to at some of the large companies, some companies that I've worked at before, and some other people that I know, they've kind of been like, we've implemented AI tools. Most of them conservatively say like 15% like productivity increase. Some of them have said 10, some of them have said like 50% productivity increase. So it kind of like your mileage obviously varies. But they're like, given sometimes there are issues and things like that, it's not all what the salespeople say. So it definitely helps. Overall, it's a productivity increase, but obviously, like, don't go wild. Don't go and fire 10 people and expect one junior dev to be able to produce their output, because you're gonna have a bad time. Simple as that.
100%.
So at the very least, a bug bounty hunter is just gonna tear through your infrastructure. And that's the best case scenario, is that a bug bounty hunter does it. So
the memes have been so good. Or like there was that one person on Twitter that was like live tweeting about how cool it was that he built his own like SaaS platform, all vibe coded. And then the next day he's like, and this was serious. Like he wasn't trolling. Like you can go through his past posts. Like he's legit. Like, I shouldn't have been tweeting about this. Like my AWS bill is like $1,000 now somehow, and like my like OpenAI is like $1,000. I don't know what happened. Like my spending is like 10 times, like clearly leaking API keys and stuff in his
Yeah,
budget.
that's it. And I think that's also the mistake that that Fireship was like saying with like the Shopify thing. If you're going to tell the whole world that your code is terrible and that you're firing all your devs, then bad things are going to
Yeah.
happen, unfortunately.
It's
So
it's it's like when people are like, I have so much crypto. I am a crypto bro, the crypto boss
yeah,
or whatever. And
yeah.
then everyone's like,
People
okay,
turn up at your
well,
house and they're like, put in the password.
yeah, or yeah, throw you in a van or whatever. But like, yeah, you're just a target then. So
Yeah, for sure. There's some more great questions. So let's take one or two more questions, and then we're going to talk about CVE stuff and the CVE drama that's happening. Which I don't know if you're on X or LinkedIn or whatever, then you'll have seen some posts. But we'll talk a little bit about it and just give our thoughts as well. So this one here. So is it possible to get a job in pen testing with no job experience, just the PSAA, PMPT, and PWPT? So what I'd say is if you don't have experience, then you're going to be applying to junior roles. But 100%, we have some students who have posted, I think, blog posts and things like that, who basically landed jobs from doing these certifications. So yes, 100%. We have proof that yeah, you can land jobs, but you have to manage your expectations because like being a what do it like at Rakuten they used to call it like mid-career, which is like an experienced professional. If you want to be like a mid-career pen tester, you do need some experience as well. So certs are just one part of the picture when it comes to landing security jobs, but 100% it's possible. And PMPT in particular is on a bunch of large companies' job postings and things like that. So so it should help for sure. Question for you, Andrew, because I think any courses around binary exploitation and exploit developments are going to be in your arena. What do you think about future courses around this?
I hope so. I keep telling people to ask, so I think people are because I'm like, keep asking, yeah. And then because you know, like we have some input about the courses, but obviously we like look at what the demand is, and you know, trying to reach the most amount of people. So I do tell people like ask, because then the right people will see it. I really hope so. So I have been like each time I stream myself, because we go through a schedule of streaming. I'm streaming exploit development right now. I am in the process of creating like this walkthrough on GitHub that's just going to be free, going through exploit development. Covers the basics right now. So just like what the stack is, memory management, stack overflows, how to write your own shell code, avoid bad characters, the basic of an exploit. But I'm going to keep adding levels to it where I'm going to start taking or putting back on all of the protections and then teaching how to get around that. So like non-executable stack, we'll put that on, then we'll do ROP chains, and then we'll add in stack canaries and take a look at if you have memory leaks and you can chain together vulnerabilities, how to get past that. And the same with ASLR and how to defeat that and keep building up throughout that level. So that's all going to be free just on my GitHub, and I'll stream it. But yeah, hopefully there'll be one. I would like to do some more Windows assembly stuff. Like we do have the Assembly 101, which only covered Linux. So it'd be cool to do some Windows stuff too, because that's more valuable. So
I'm just going to post the link to your GitHub. I've just posted it in the chat. So for everybody who wants to go in and follow star, whatever GitHub uses, I can't remember.
The repo is Overflow Me. That's the name.
That's it. Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, I was looking at it the other day because I'm currently going through some assembly stuff, and there we go. I just dropped the links in. Yeah, nice. And I think like the more people that ask for this kind of thing, like Andrew says, the more that the TCM overlords decide that you know, the course is worthwhile, because I don't know, like it's sometimes tricky. Like there's courses that we want to make that are more niche, but obviously like we also need to be a profitable company as well. And we try to give as much back as possible. So a lot of our content is also freely available and things like that. So but the more
Yep.
people who want stuff, the more it becomes viable that we can sit and make it. So that's pretty nice. This is, I suppose this isn't a question. This is more of a statement. I need help choosing the best future career. If you had to choose one career, Andrew, what would it be? Like, let's cybersecurity aside, since there's no real question here. This is just a statement. What would you say if you were 21 right now, or if your kid was 21 and they were like, please choose a career for me?
A career for me? I really like working with my hands. Honestly, I'd probably be like an electrician or something. Trades are good. Going to be a lot of demand for trades. I mean, AI cannot do that for at least quite a while. Yeah, I like doing, or maybe carpentry.
Yeah. What would I choose? I'd say be an Instagram model. I don't know. Like,
those are being replaced by AI now, though, so that would be a tough one.
That was the first to be replaced. Also, there's a good tutorial on how to do that on Fireship as well.
Yep.
Yeah, something like that would be.
I saw a rockstar, and that would be cool. Musician, be tough to make.
Jokes aside, I think I would definitely choose something. I'd like to be able to travel and work. And currently, like, because I have to record a lot and things like that, it makes it a little bit tricky. I think if you were a developer and you could work from anywhere in the world, and let's say you could go to, like, I don't know, like I go to Morocco every year to go surfing. If I could go there for like 2 months maybe and still work and then surf and travel, that would be good for me, for sure. If I was younger, I think now that I've got these 2 feral cats to look after, so it's not a viable option anymore. But I think looking back, that's something I would have liked to have done. So anything that would be digital nomad is definitely like a thing that appeals to me, for sure.
I've always dreamed going just off grid. I think everyone reaches that point of like in a technical career. Like I'm only like maybe like 13 or 14 years into it now, but like the thoughts are creeping in, and then I know it's like you ever see those memes or like junior or whatever, and then it's like senior principal, and then it's like goose farmer or something. Like there's that one guy at Microsoft.
Yeah, that's
like, yeah, I can see the appeal with that.
It makes sense that the IoT guy who knows everything about connected devices wants to go off grid.
I have one smart device in my house. That's it. And it's a thermostat because I actually see the value in that. And I like being able to reduce my like carbon footprint and stuff. So that helps by like automatically turning down the heat and when we don't need it. And I don't even really notice it. So but that's it. That's the only one. Nothing else.
I think our thermostat, so it's not technically, so it is like a smart device, but it's not connected to the internet. There's like a reader, and that's connected to the boiler, but then that's not connected to the internet. So like the reader we can use as like as a small device, and then it tells you like your bills and your usage and stuff like that. The one smart device that I have is the automatic cat feeder, because I feed my cats, but usually I feed Poppy at 6 a.m. She goes mental at like 4 a.m. every single morning for 2 hours and like tears around and howls and like wants to be fed. Since we got the automatic cat feeder, for just that one morning feed, she now has learned that I'm not feeding her in the morning. So she won't like be a nightmare. So, but that is like connected to an app that's connected to my phone.
I have one
here on my desk. So
I have one here. I bought it for $30 Canadian. So that's like $20 US. It connects to the internet though. It is in my pile of stuff to hack. I'm sure it's going to be wildly insecure though for like $20. Yeah. How can they build the hardware and write an app and everything, all that? So
I got quite an expensive one, but what I thought was when I was reading up on it, it was you set it up when you're connected to Wi-Fi. And I thought, okay, it just connects to your Wi-Fi and then it just connects to the device and that's fine. But actually, it turns out you can connect to it over the internet. And I was like, okay. And what I assume is it's actually connecting back to their server and then your
Oh
app
yeah,
is also connected to their server and then that's how it's doing the connection. I haven't done any testing on it yet because, well, I don't know, like if I'm attacking their server, then that's kind of like against the
yeah,
law.
yeah,
I will dig into like the app at some point. I'll just intercept the traffic and read it at the very
yeah,
least to see what's going on. But I was a bit surprised. I thought I got this specific one thinking that it only worked on Wi-Fi, and that's why I got it. But it turns out it's
yeah.
not. So
I got a baby monitor like that for my son. It's not even Wi-Fi actually. It's like specifically, it's just like radio, like RF.
yeah,
There is no internet involved.
yeah. Let's take one more question and then let's talk about the CVE drama. So Circuit, good to see you as always, a regular on the stream. So question for Andrew, as someone who's new to hardware and IoT hacking, what level of crossover is there with OT, SCADA, etc.?
I would say there definitely is some crossover between the two of them. Uh, Specifically, if you are going to be looking at trying to find novel vulnerabilities in those systems, so they're going to have firmware that you can reverse engineer and try and find novel vulnerabilities for. The differences in OT and SCADA, though, really just rely or land on those ecosystems of how they actually function and how you work in those fields. So, like pen testing, OT, and SCADA is a lot different than pen testing other environments because the stuff is very fragile. And there's like danger to, even loss of life or limb or like a lot of money for shutdowns. So it's a lot more auditing and understanding how these systems work. So there's definitely like some crossover though between them. It just really
Yep.
depends on what you're going to be doing. Yeah, hopefully
Yeah,
that
that
answers
makes
it.
sense. I did uh, capture the train at Black Hat 3 years ago or something. They had some like SCADA train set,
Mhm.
and if you nmap the network, everything dies. And he's
Yeah,
like, "Yeah, SCADA systems are sensitive. Like you have to
yeah,
be,
they're very.
a very specific skill set, I think."
Yeah. Yeah. I used to so I never did like that as security, but when I worked as an engineer, like I worked in that environment, like control systems, SCADA, OT, all that. I've been to like lots and lots of different power plants, manufacturing facilities,
Yep.
military bases, all that. And some of them it was like really nerve-wracking because they needed our system to run. Like if our system was down, some of them even for like 15 minutes, some of them, if our system went down, it shut down their factory.
Mhm.
And some of these places had like these clauses for they're supplying electricity or steam or something, and like certain once it goes past an hour, that's like $1 million lost. So you're like, oh man, I need to be so careful. Like,
It's like real testing in prod is bad. Like
yeah, but like you
that
can't take
jacked up
down
to
the like you can't be you have to either then wait for a shutdown, which could be like weeks or months away, a planned
Mm,
shutdown, right? So you make sure
yeah.
yeah, test it many, many times before like at your office and like a setup, make sure everything works before you go there and do anything.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that's too scary for me. I think, I mean, if you learn by experience and if you work with somebody for many years, then you probably get a bit of a sixth sense to what's risky and what's not. Obviously, occasionally there can always be mishaps, but I think proper on the job training is definitely is going to help there.
That job
At
was
least it seems
stressful.
like.
I don't miss it.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah. So let's talk about CVEs. Do you want to give like a rundown of what CVEs are, or I can do it to kind of like frame the conversation? Just
Sure. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So the CVE database is a database and server that's run by like a third-party independent company called MITRE, and this is a database of vulnerabilities that is the most important thing is it's just used by everyone in the industry. So it's been going
Yeah.
since 1999, I think, which is like quite old.
Yeah.
And since it got adapted, it's like one of those things where like got properly adapted by everyone. Because you know how you have like other systems where it's just like a mess of like maybe like video game launchers or something, like, oh, Steam, this, whatever. But it's just like used across the whole industry, which is pretty cool and like something you don't see for a lot of things. But this database is so critical because when vulnerabilities are publicly disclosed, they get put into this database and
Yeah.
they get tied to the software or hardware. It also is for hardware as well, that is vulnerable, and the version of it, and also a score 0 through 10 of the severity. So
Yeah.
this allows on a defensive side, like IT team, cybersecurity, whatever, you can always go check, I'm running whatever firewall software or this or whatever, we can check vulnerabilities. Most of the time now people aren't manually doing this. They're using like vulnerability management systems and scanners and all that, but all that backend relies on the database of CVEs and it being updated.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what the database is. And then there's also the CWE database, which the CVE is like specific to a vulnerability found in something, whereas like CWE is like that type or class of vulnerability. Like maybe you would have remote code execution or something like that would have a CWE tied to it. So both of those are maintained and operated by MITRE, which is
Yeah.
like an independent company, but it gets its funding from the US government.
Yeah. Like Department of Homeland
The
Security.
DHS and CISA
Yeah,
both.
that's it. Yeah. So I have this cool diagram, which I'm just going to share with you. So shout out to Lito Tech. Oh, so Latio Tech, sorry. Not Lito Tech. I found this earlier because he did a video on the CVE drama that's happening. And I think this was quite a cool diagram. So if you don't know anything about CVEs, this is basically kind of like the life cycle. And as Andrew described, yeah, if you're like a security company or a vendor or a researcher, you find a vulnerability, you submit it to a CNA, which is like a CVE sub numbering authority. They review it, they assign a number from their block, and then after they assign it, they send it over to MITRE, and then MITRE like organize everything and publish to cve.org. And then I think later on things are pushed to the National Vulnerability Database and some
Yes.
other places as well. There's probably a lot that happens that we don't know about. But I think some of the big players like the CNAs, like GitHub's a big one, Google's a big one, Microsoft's a big one. And then I think there's more than 100 of them.
Yeah, the certs have one too, like the government level as well.
Yeah.
A lot of them are. Yeah, and like you can go straight to MITRE too if like the companies won't work with you. Also,
I'm just going to put a link to Latio Tech in the chat since this is his image. So shout out to him. Yeah, and so my assumption was when this whole drama happened. So what happened was basically there was a letter leaked, and Tibbs posted it online saying, "Hey, there's no more funding from today, literally today." And as far as I know, the current update is that there is some like emergency funding happening. But I actually thought that maybe one of the big players like GitHub or Google or somebody like that would actually come in and maybe replace MITRE in terms of like taking on the responsibility for maintaining the database. The CVE.org basically database, and then also the responsibility of like giving out the number blocks to the other CVE numbering authorities or whatever. So this is my assumption, and I don't know, we might be in a case where, for example, I don't know, we might see a push for like a global vulnerability database. And then I saw some posts about one of the board members starting up the CVE Foundation. So maybe we might see a sudden power struggle in some
Yep.
You know, we might see a dictator rise in terms of like CVEs. I mean, there are so many crazy things. My takeaway from this is that there are a lot of things in security that are really fragile, especially in the open source community and the tech
Yep.
industry, where like there are open source libraries that are basically maintained because somebody feels some kind of responsibility to it, not
Yep.
because they're getting paid for it. And again, like the CVEs, why is this not funded by everybody who ingests it and use it? Why is it not? Should it be a subscription service? Like not an expensive one, but like every organization, every scanner, every commercial tool. Like
Yep.
I don't want to like call out. I'm not saying that calling that specifically, but like some of the big scanners, should they pay to use the information, and should that be used
Yeah.
to fund like the CVE database? I don't know, but there's so much that happens in our industry that's so has such a terrible foundation. Like there's no backup, there's no you know, robustness, there's no foundation for the house. It's just sticks and
Yeah.
then something on top. There's that meme, you know, where you've got like that whole stack and then at the bottom it's got like that one little building block
Yep.
that's like
It's,
somebody maintaining it. Like,
XKCD. It's like one
yeah,
random
that's it.
library that someone
Yeah.
in like North Dakota like maintains as a hobby.
Yeah, exactly. This
Yeah.
is it. And there's so much in our industry that's like that, that I feel like this doesn't really come as a surprise.
No,
Like,
we see that coming out when there are like really big open source vulnerabilities that are like extremely damaging. Like Log4j was an
yeah,
example of that
yeah,
because like yeah, it's open source stuff that companies are using and profiting off of and like kind
they
of just
want,
assuming
yeah,
is going to be secure, but it's
yeah.
like yeah, this is like, you know, free stuff and you guys are profiting off of it, but you know, yeah, maybe you should be forking up some money or like I don't know. It's a tough, yeah.
I think so, yeah. And like, yeah, Circuit says it here. So like cybersecurity is like built on sticks. And I feel like not all of it, but I think a lot of stuff that we take for granted is definitely this. Like
Yep.
100%.
Yep.
Um
Definitely.
so that's my take. I thought, yeah, maybe like one of the numbering authorities would take over. Seems like there's some emergency funding. Maybe we'll see a global vulnerability database. It'd be nice to see more proof of concepts in MITRE, like as a pen tester, but I don't think that's the main focus. It's more to aid like communication and patch management and remediation and things like that. What do you think? If you were
Yeah.
running the CVE database, how would you, one, make sure it's stable, and two, how would you improve it? That's my two questions for you.
Yeah, I don't know. I would try maybe go like the Wikipedia Foundation or something because like so many people need it and realize it. And
Not since ChatGPT though.
yeah, I
I
mean, people
Stack
don't.
Overflow and Wikipedia are now like
Yeah,
just
no, but like I mean, people know they need my like the CVE database.
yeah,
So like I think you could probably come up with that funding from like the big name players because
yeah.
yeah, it seems like
That
a
will
lot of
go
money,
quite
but to them
friendly.
it's not a lot. What's so you could probably get it from some of those big name players and then try and run it the same way. The problem then is yeah, you're consistently reliant on them, but I mean it's not a lot different than being reliant on the US government now because that's not as stable as it once was.
Yeah.
Because yeah, I don't think I would want a company running it because yeah, then you always
It's
worry about
MITRE's
it.
a non-profit though, at the very least. So it's, I know
Yeah,
it, like some people in the
exactly.
chat saying it's a private company, but it is a non-profit
Yeah,
organization, which, you know, obviously they're aligned to some kind of goal or vision being,
yeah,
which helps.
and like that kind of is what they do. Like they do some other stuff, but for the most part, that's what they do. But like if
Yeah.
you have GitHub do it right, like that's not what GitHub does, right? Like it,
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, then you get like the potential for corruption and like, yeah, all sorts of issues. Like
yeah,
GitHub could be like, ah, you're not allowed to use our database because we said so, because you're GitLab or something
yeah,
like this. Like
yeah,
you're a competitor. So I get the idea that it needs to be impartial
yeah. It
for
really
sure.
does for it to work. Like that's why it worked for so long,
Yeah.
right? So yeah, I think like there would be ways to, because companies actually pay for open source stuff. It's kind of been drying up recently, or like not as publicly, but like in the golden days of tech, or like when things are going well, they'll
Yeah.
let their developers spend like X amount of money, or they'll just sponsor projects that like they want, so that the developers can work on it and make some cash for that open source. Um, so I feel like coming up with that level of funding, it wouldn't be a lot for
Yeah.
those big corporations, you know, your Googles, your Metas, your
Yeah.
cybersecurity ones that are relying on it. Yeah, could probably come up with something.
Yeah, and it amazes me, like, it's similar to like OWASP, for example. So OWASP obviously get sponsorship from lots of different organizations and
Yep.
companies, but the number of people who use the resources as a open source resource, yeah, it's a bit of a weird one. I feel like people charge a lot more for a lot less, and then you get these open source, amazing open source projects that are just running off charity, basically.
Goodwill. Yep. Just wanting,
And
like, I
goodwill.
mean,
Yeah.
like CVE database makes the world and society better. Like, obviously,
Yeah.
significantly improves cybersecurity.
But also a lot of commercial tools run off of it as well.
Yeah. Oh
Like,
yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
reference it and use it as like their main findings.
It's yeah. It is like it. If it were just like knocked off, like I don't think that's what was going to happen. I think it probably would have most likely more just been like, yeah, we're not going to be updating like that broken cycle probably. But yeah, if it just got turned off all of a sudden, like all those tools that are running, they would be done. All
Yeah.
your risk frameworks too, and like all of
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
like, you know.
Yeah. I'm just gonna do some shots. So NTP apparently was one guy for decades. I didn't know this. So
Jeez.
that's crazy.
I
And
feel like
then
that one never works anyway.
Messi says, same with Nmap, maybe one guy for a long time. I also didn't know this. I thought Nmap was a small group, but you could be right. I'm not sure. But
Yeah.
again, I've never paid to use Nmap. No pen tester has ever paid to use Nmap.
No.
Which to me is bonkers. Like I pay like money to use the tools like Burp Suite, and then you can
Yep.
pay for like Metasploit Pro and everything else. But then there are like core tools that everybody uses, and it's just a free tool. Yeah, bonkers, huh?
Yep.
The world is crazy.
Curl.
Yeah,
There's
Curl.
one that
Yeah,
one guy, I
Curl.
forget his name. But it's like in NASA and stuff. I remember he was posting about
Yeah, I remember the whole NASA thing about curl being
yeah, they're like,
in
can
space and
you
code review.
yeah, fill out this like whatever like vulnerability management thing or something like that. And he was like, oh, cool. Can you like confirm that like my code is in space or whatever? And they're like, we can't confirm or deny. And he was like, I'm just gonna take it as, yeah, my curl is in space.
Curl's definitely in space. Like you can
For sure.
Yeah, 100% satellites can send curl requests.
Yeah.
For sure. For sure.
He is that if you're interested in secure coding though, like he never has CVEs, because like the curl is like so well coded, and he has like this whole philosophy of like writing secure code, and yeah, doing it all for free too. But like it's like there's like case studies on it of like how well he writes secure code at like a very low level, which is very interesting.
I don't know the guy's name, but if anybody knows who they are, reach out to them. We'd love to have you on for a live stream. So yeah, ping us a message. That would be amazing. And I have so many secure code review questions, because for me, like secure coding is like something that I'm quite passionate about, but it's just such a large, like huge area of cybersecurity, especially across like all the different technologies, tech stacks, and everything else. And like there are different approaches, even between languages. I think like secure coding requires a different approach. So yeah, that would be such a cool live stream. Just from my perspective, I think that would be awesome. Any other thoughts on CV stuff? So I think given there's going to be like emergency funding, I suspect that it'll die down and CVE database will continue. But I think it's a good lesson learned, just like the CrowdStrike lesson learned was a good lesson learned.
Yeah, the problem is now people can't rely on it. Like, it was just kind of a granted, and very few people talked about it at all. Like, no one was like, "Oh yeah, CVE might go away." Like, I never even considered to wonder about how that was funded. I don't know, did
Yeah.
you? Like, I never really even thought about it until that. So, but now it's forefront in everyone's minds. So, definitely makes room for something else to creep in and like even beat it out if possible, even though it's like a behemoth. But if you're worried about it being shut off, you're like, oh, well, can I trust this? Like,
Yeah.
what if it didn't and it just got shut off, like completely turned off just overnight?
Yeah, I suppose like because they uploaded the backup to GitHub, which was quite funny.
Yeah.
No new CVEs. I think the biggest thing is that a lot of tools would essentially stop working, like a
Yep.
lot of scanners and things. I think for like pen testers and stuff, would a lot change? Obviously, being able to find CVEs would be a little bit more annoying and stuff. But I think like automated security and stuff like that, that would be like vulnerability management would just become a nightmare.
Yeah.
If the CVE, that's my, I think that would be the biggest impact for sure.
Yeah.
Managed service providers as well that provide vulnerability scanning, that would also basically massively increase the cost of their service, or it would just be a diminished service. Hey, Poppy, stop
Yep.
eating my chair.
100%. Yeah. I can think of like a whole product line at the last place that I worked that would just,
Yeah.
like, it would have been, yeah, no, it doesn't work anymore because it relied on those scores. I mean, unless
Yeah.
they could find historical ones, but I mean, security moves so fast. You don't like, you know, the stuff from a couple of years ago, you don't care about as much. It's the stuff that comes up every day, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So,
I've got a cool question here from Pratix, which I'm just going to pick up. What do I think about the new Burp AI features? I don't want to be mean. Burp's a great tool, but I think if Burp Suite wasn't a monopoly, then things would be a little bit trickier, and I'm a little underwhelmed by the new AI features. And I'm optimistic in there's going to be a lot of great plugins that use Burp Suite's AI features with the Montoya API. And I think there's going to be some amazing stuff. But having seen, like, I joined the big 2025 release stream. Honestly, like login sequences, being able to do that with AI, I mean, that could save me 2 minutes. I don't care about that. There was also some stuff with Hackverter. I think there is some really good potential with Hackverter, but some of the examples they gave and be like, please crack this MD5 hash. I'm like, come on. And anybody with any skills can crack an MD5 hash. I don't need AI to do that for me, just because the hash is somewhere online. And I think a lot of the use cases that were given at the webinars were kind of like I say, underwhelming. But I'm kind of positive, like I'm optimistic about what the community is going to create. So I'm a little disappointed with Portswigger as a company, but I'm optimistic about the community. And sorry if you do work at Portswigger, this isn't like a bash against you, but apologies, I'm a little bit disappointed. There was a big thing about like revolutionizing AppSec in 2025 and what the new roadmap is, and all I saw was there's going to be an emphasis on privacy, and now we can make logins easier. And there was one use case I think about broken authentication. Was it like to reduce false positives? And it's like, I don't care about that. I can verify that myself. So yeah, I don't want to be too I am being really negative. I don't want to be, but I am being. So sorry about that. I love Burp Suite as a tool, but Burp Suite AI, I'm yet to see anything that is remotely useful. Oh, and the explainer. I mean, come on, I can just copy and paste a request into ChatGPT. You're going to save me 5 seconds. I know it's nice to not leave my tool, but seriously? Kaido
yeah.
had that 2 years ago. Like what? What's like that's not groundbreaking. 2 years. Like, come on. Yeah. So anyway, I'm a little bit upset about that. So and yeah, anyway. We'll keep going. um let's see if we have some other questions. I had a bit of a weird moment there where I didn't want to say too much because I don't want to be a negative person, but I do feel like I've been slapped in the face a little bit. My hopes and dreams were dashed. So oh, the CVE letter leak was intentional.
Oh,
Yeah.
definitely,
Probably. Yeah.
100%. Yeah,
Yeah. I mean that's a good way to like stop something big from happening, right?
yeah. Oh, it was
Like
100%. It was like because they were like, would the funding have swooped in if so many people weren't like, holy, like this is going to be
yeah.
really bad, right? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not, right? Like, it definitely was intentional, though. Like, even still, to at least also just give people a heads up. Like, even like, what if they literally just turned it off? Can you
Yeah.
imagine? Like, it would just cause chaos.
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of crazy to me.
Yeah, the whole situation. If you want insider knowledge, message Tiberius because he's the one. As far as I know, he's the one who first posted the thing. So if he usually does a live stream. He does Mondays for sure. I can't remember what other days he live streams. I don't usually catch them because I'm usually asleep because of the time zone. But pester Tiberius if you want insider info on the CV stuff. I think we've got time for one or two more questions. So let me just check and see what's pinned. And oh, when's the next pen testing live stream? So one of us will be live streaming next week. I think next week. It might be Prince next week though. So maybe we'll either have blue team stuff next week or we might have some exploit development. We'll see. We need to figure out who's the least busy next week. But next
Yeah.
week there'll be some technical content for sure.
Yeah.
Oh my god, my cat is like really trying my patience on my desk. Let me keep scrolling down, see what question for you, Andrew. What do you think the biggest threat to cybersecurity today is? I think given what we've talked about today, there's a lot of front runners.
Yeah, right now it is the defunding of various organizations that have been doing a lot of work in the background to make things more secure and hold companies accountable, release all of these like important updates and all the stuff that the CISA does, and it's just kind of been reliant, unfortunately, like on I guess the U.S. government. So that, in conjunction with like the loss of all of the cybersecurity workers in the private sector, I think is a huge threat to cybersecurity
Yeah.
of not just the U.S. though, like because really, yeah, I mean, a lot of other people have kind of been riding on those coattails of like using that, and it kind of just made like the world a better place because people use that to make things more secure and keep the bad guys out. But yeah, like especially the loss of the private sector security employees, because at least in my opinion, like one of the reasons you work in this private sector over public in tech and cybersecurity is for really good job stability, because you could probably make way more in the public sector. So once you start kicking those people out, or like making it so now it's all like, oh, this is not as stable of a job, like what are the advantages? I think it's gonna be hard to get all of that talent back in. And
Yeah.
I mean, we've had years of like, we're behind like these other countries that are, potentially considered threat actors or doing malicious things to our companies and citizens. And now we're just going backwards. Like we're, you know, there's been like years of like, yeah, we need to like outpace it. Like, you know, cybersecurity is like going to be
Yeah.
more important than kinetic warfare, whatever, like whether you believe that or not. But like now, now we're going like not even maintaining, we're going backwards. And like,
Yeah.
I don't think our competitors are, I mean, I'm not American, but like, I just kind of talking about like, you know, North America and like the Western world.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't see like them cutting or backing down on like their cyber capabilities
Yeah. 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 I think so.
without
And
getting too political.
to me, like a lot of people talk about like APTs and stuff, but I'm like, well, is it as bad as CrowdStrike? Like, how's CrowdStrike like the number one APT in my mind? So
Yeah. Yep.
yeah, yeah, it's crazy, and I think yeah, there's obviously a lot of hard questions to answer in terms of what we take for granted, what needs funding, and what do we need, what do we as an industry need to be like rock solid in terms of what do we actually, where do we put the money in then, and who benefits from that.
Yeah.
I think that's really, really important. I'm gonna just post this one last question. This is definitely for you, Andrew, as well. How do you feel about BT and or Wi-Fi front door locks? And
Oh yeah.
I'm thinking, send me a front door lock. I'll install it, and we'll make a video. I'll put it on my patio, on the window.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Like, so the thing is, like, a lot of front door locks are not very secure regardless. Like, if you understand about like physical pen testing or how locks work. So like personally, yeah, I wouldn't. I don't have like any of that stuff in my house, and I don't really see the advantage of it. I would potentially consider something like NFC or like
Yeah.
an RFID one to open it. Maybe even potentially Bluetooth. Would not want a Wi-Fi one. I know there's advantage of that, to like letting people in and stuff, but yeah, I would not. To give a little teaser, which this doesn't spoil anything about the IoT exam, but there's one target and it is a smart lock. So that may tell you how I feel about that as a piece of technology. But yeah, I see someone in chat, like, I don't need to break the lock if I can break the door, or like, you know, there's a window right beside my door. Right. So like,
Yeah.
it's kind of one of those things, same with like cyber attacks on like factories or like other stuff on like a smaller scale. It's like almost just protected by the fact that no one wants to cross that line. So like,
Yeah.
if you're gonna like
delaying people is also a legit strategy for security. For example, if you have a high, like let's say you need to keep a room secure, and you have a door that's going to hold for 8 hours.
Yeah.
The way you do that is that, and then you send a patrol around every 8 hours, and you're like, okay, I know this is secure, because like you've got like the time. And it's the same with like yeah, you have like windows and things like that, but obviously somebody smashing a window is going to draw attention. And so like, yeah, that's part of security, is like how overt it is to like break into.
Yeah, and then it's just like society too, right? Like
Yeah.
it's crossing that like threshold of like, you know, like I'm gonna break. Am I gonna break into someone's house, right? Like, you know,
Yeah.
because the as a society we've decided like, yeah, that's, you know, you're gonna get in big trouble for that. It's the same with like nation states or whatever. That's what I was getting to with like hacking a factory. Can they? Yes. Could they take down the power system? Honestly, probably, but like crossing that line then for like governments would be like, no, now this is not a cyber attack. Like this is kinetic war. It's the same with like a lock. Like, yeah, you know, I hacked it and broke into your house. Like now, you know, this isn't a cyber crime. Like now you're B&E, right? Like we don't care how you open the door.
Yeah.
But no, I would not put one on my door still though.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I'm yet to do the IoT exam. I've been through, I think like 2/3 of the course. I need to go back through because I like had a big break, and then I'm definitely gonna do it. So I'm gonna enjoy taking a look at the smart lock. But yeah, that's, I think, all we have time for today. Thanks everybody for joining. hopefully, if you're on the academy, like we say, you can get access to the modules as they release for the practical security fundamentals. And then once the course is finished, it is going to be dropped onto the free tier. So if you can wait a little bit longer, if you're not on the academy, then this will be a free course eventually for you, because we do try and give as much as we can back to the community. Awesome to have you on, as always, Andrew. Enjoyed the
Thank you.
CVE chat and everything else. And thanks, everybody, for joining. And we'll catch you all